I've seen it happen a lot. You scroll through glossy Amazon images, read the hype about immersive Dolby Atmos or game-boosted audio, click add to cart, and then the night you finally fire it up the dialogue sounds muffled, the bass feels thin, and you end up turning the volume way up just to hear the actors. It's a painful reminder that a product can look perfect on a listing and still be a letdown when you actually sit down to watch a movie. That's why I wanted to break down the Hisense 65-inch U7 TV bundled with the AX3120Q soundbar before anyone spends a dime. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the bundle is targeting a specific crowd, people who already own a decent-sized TV and want a quick upgrade to the audio side without diving into a full-blown home theater system. If you're the type who watches a lot of action films, plays competitive shooters, or streams sports and you've been frustrated by missing that whoosh of a passing car or the subtle banter during a sitcom, this could be a decent middle ground. Conversely, if you're a cinephile with a dedicated AVR and a room-filling speaker array, or you're living in a tiny studio where a 3.1.2 setup will dominate the space, you'll probably want to skip this bundle. Let's talk about dialogue clarity, because that's the first thing most viewers notice. The AX3120Q uses a 3.1.2 channel layout that means 3 front speakers, a dedicated subwoofer, and 2 upward-firing drivers for overhead effects. In practice, the front speakers do a respectable job of pulling out speech from the mix. When I put on a dialogue-heavy drama like The Crown, the voices stayed crisp even when the background score swelled. The Quick Touch EQ presets let you toggle to a movie mode that emphasizes mid-range frequencies, which is exactly where most dialogue lives. That said, the preset isn't a magic button. You still have to fine-tune the volume balance between the sub and the satellites if the dialogue gets drowned out by an explosion or a booming soundtrack. Bass performance is where the subwoofer shows its limits. The AX3120Q sub is compact, designed to fit under a typical TV stand, and it punches out a decent thump for a 65-inch screen. Watching a superhero film, the low-end rumble of a cityscape collapse was noticeable, but it didn't shake the couch the way a larger 10-inch sub would. If your main viewing room is a standard living room, about 250,300 square feet, the sub will add enough depth to feel present without overwhelming the mids. In a larger open-plan area, you'll notice the bass taper off quickly, and you might be left reaching for a separate subwoofer to get the full impact. Surround effect is another claim that gets tossed around a lot. The 2 upward-firing drivers attempt to simulate overhead sounds, which is a neat trick for Dolby Atmos content. In a scene with rain falling from above in Blade Runner 2049, you actually sensed that vertical element. The sound seemed to hover above the screen rather than just coming from the front speakers. However, the effect is subtle and heavily dependent on ceiling height. In rooms with low ceilings, under 8 feet, the upward drivers bounce sound off the ceiling too quickly, making the height channel feel flat. If you have a higher ceiling or a reflective surface above the TV, the Atmos effect becomes more convincing. Room size fit is a practical consideration. The soundbar itself is 38 inches wide, which matches nicely with a 65-inch TV, leaving a small gap on either side. It sits flush on the TV stand and doesn't need a wall mount, so setup is straightforward. The subwoofer is about the size of a small laptop, and its wireless connection to the bar works reliably within a 30-foot range. I placed the sub on the opposite side of the couch from the TV, and there was no noticeable latency or dropout in the bass response. That said, the wireless link can be finicky if you have a lot of other 2.4 GHz devices in the same space. I noticed occasional hiccups when my Wi-Fi router was right next to the soundbar. Streaming and TV connectivity is where the bundle gets a real boost. The soundbar includes an HDMI ARC port, an optical input, and Bluetooth, plus a built-in Wi-Fi module that lets you pull content from Spotify, Amazon Music, or cast directly from a phone. I paired it with the Hisense U7 TV via HDMI ARC, which let the TV's remote control the volume and mute the bar without needing a separate remote. The transition between TV audio and a streamed playlist was seamless. The only friction point was the remote itself. The buttons are a bit cramped, and the mode button for switching between TV, Bluetooth, and HDMI inputs sometimes registers multiple presses, sending you back to the last source you used. It's not a deal breaker, but it does add a tiny learning curve if you're juggling multiple sources. Now, does this bundle truly upgrade a normal movie night? If your current setup is just the TVs,